Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Global Comic Safari. I am Jon Z with comicbookinvest.com, and with me, as always, is Matt Roybal, Define 999.
What's up, guys?
Welcome, man. I am excited about this one.
Yep.
We are doing the big boy. We've been teasing this one for a few weeks, so I am very, very excited. I just want to thank our friends at CBSI, comicbookinvest.com, your number one source for free comic book research, investing, and speculation needs, articles daily, and all kinds of content dropping every day. So check them out.
Definitely.
Also, Matt and I really want to thank the Foreign Comic Collector magazine community on this one, because this was a huge endeavor. Lots of people contributed, so we want to thank them all.
Yes, they all deserve thanks. This is a huge show. We couldn't do it without the community. I would like to thank specifically Gabe Tampaladis, CBCS expert Tim Bildhauser, Cecilio Jacobo Glez, Morton Thompson, Scott McManus, Nadim Suleiman, Peter Strangenberg, Bjorn Elkoff, and my Filipino crew, Glenn Martyr, Arthur Tanti, and Alf Langrisola. So, yeah, I mean, a lot of people got together on this one and decided we were going to make this the best show we possibly could, and the community stepped up. It's been awesome.
I mean, so without further ado, the set we're going to do is the ASM 300 set. While it is small, it is mighty. I mean, there's not a lot of issues, but they are tough set to build.
Yeah, this is not only can be a very tough set to build, but it's probably one of the most popular sets to build. I mean, what can you say about the Spider-Man 300? It is the the Incredible Hulk 181 of the Copper Age. It is the book that, when being a Copperhead, John, because that was my generation, this book was the holy grail for me growing up.
I mean, it's arguably the most important book in the last at least 40 years. So
yeah, it's huge. It's really huge. Now, do I have some issues with some of the possible design choices Marvel did? Maybe. But what I don't have any issues with is the classic McFarlane art. It's just wonderful. It's gorgeous. It's a gorgeous book. And when you build this set and you get these books and you put them together, and I say it often, the fuel that kind of fuels set builders is novelty. That is the kind of the lifeblood of the set builder. Novelty and variation fuel your buildings of these sets, because if the books looked all exactly the same, it'd be very much fun, would it, John?
No. This one has enough variation, but it also just has enough similar. It really is running that border.
Yeah, I mean, it's a wonderful set to build. It's in our intro. Our intro, our Global Comic Safari intro, we used this book as an example of what set building is, the soul of set building. Look at a 300 set and tell me that this isn't.
I remember telling him, like, I want to use this. I want this set to be what we want to see and show our brand. This is it, because this is the one that I think even casual collectors have seen a couple of these and go, hey, I've seen that before. I didn't know what it was.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's unmistakable. And bad set, big boy set, and it's got some books in there that are definitely tougher than others. We'll get to that.
Let's talk about why this book is. What's so far. So, Amazing Spider-Man 300, published May of 1988. Just a monster of a book. Everybody wants one. If you don't have one in your collection, there's questions of why. I mean, as we said, it's first appearance of Venom. I know there's argument of cameo and all that, but first appearance of Venom is everybody's thing. The iconic McFarlane cover. I mean, that Spidey pose is just that's like Air Jordan on the shoes. It is just something instantaneously recognizable and been swiped. I don't even know how many times, hundreds, if not more. So I mean, people this pose is it's as much as you can get an iconic.
Yeah.
Some stats: 22,000 plus graded.
Wow.
1,300 in 9.8.
Wow, that's a lot of 9.8.
10 9.9s, amazingly. I don't know how that happens because this book's notorious for having kind of an overcut cover. So like that top edge generally has a lot of overcut on it.
Wow.
9.8 is going to cost you about $2,000 right now, give or take. And
yeah,
you can pay any price in between. You're not going to find anything under a couple $100 though. So this
what's a mid-grade copy usually run, John?
$300-400.
Yeah, that's what I thought. It's still a bit. I mean, you know, some people might not be able to afford a mid-grade, but I still think with a little effort and a little work, you can. You know, that's the beauty of this.
It doesn't drop much lower, though. I mean, I've seen torn copies and missing pieces sell for well over 100. So
yeah,
your initial buying is about $300 on this book.
Yeah,
no matter
it's going to
where
be.
You're going. So,
but there's enough of them out there. You can get them, and you know, this is who doesn't want this book in their collection. Oh, I guess hardcore DC guys.
Maybe even they want it. Come on, we all grew up wanting this one. So
that's funny.
This is a bad boy, and
yeah,
I went with a 9.8 just because who doesn't want one of those two? But
yeah,
it's a little more out of most people's range, but it's a beautiful book, and
beautiful.
Let's dive into the madness of this set, though. Starting in Spain.
Spain. Okay. This is the Spanish Spider-Man, El Hombre Rana 190. It was published by Forum in September of 1989, so a good year after the American. Full-color interiors, and this book is a larger format, closer to kind of a magazine size. The classic Venom 300 splash page is not included, however. Kind of weird, right? That is kind of weird. So that classic splash page is not included. The first 10 pages of the classic 300 Venom story is in the book previous, the Arana 189. So it's split. That's why it's not in there. Okay. This book contains the last 30 pages of the 300. So for some reason, the publisher kind of chopped the 300 story in half, so to speak. And they spread it across two books. Also, in this case, the 300 lettering is often, considering the American numbering means nothing to the foreign readers.
This is bizarre.
This is Arana 190. This publisher, Forum, kept it. So that's kind of interesting. But, this book, it's very similar to the American original. What do you think of that title, John?
It's not bad. It's a little more 70s vibe to me.
It kind of does with the yellow, right? Yeah, it does have a 70s vibe.
Letters. It's not distracting.
No, I don't think it's bad, and I kind of like the contrast of the yellow on the red. On the red 300s, it's kind of neat. And one of the beauties about this book is when you actually have it in hand, you'll appreciate its larger size.
Yeah.
So it's getting it in there close to magazine size, and so our classic McFarlane circle and Spidey pose is bigger. So that's definitely a plus with this book. This book isn't going to be too hard to find. You can find them on Spanish eBay or Todo Colección. What might be harder is finding nicer copies of this book. Just put a little effort. This is going to be one of the easier of the set to find.
Yeah, find your nice copy.
Yeah.
All right.
Definitely.
So we're going to jump to my favorite of the set.
Not
the hardest to get, but my favorite.
I think you've got an addiction, John. I think you've got a problem.
I may have closed a deal on another one last night.
Oh my God! I'm
definitely trending to double digits.
This guy is hoarding these issues, man. Okay.
How can you not? It's just gorgeous. This Italian one is gorgeous. So
yes,
we'll let you do the stats quick, but
yes, this is a gorgeous one. The Italian, the Lomo Ragno 91, published by Star Comics in March of 1992. Full color interiors, along with a redesigned cardstock cover, makes this book a beast. I mean, that design is amazing. In many people's opinion, this could quite possibly be the most well-handled of all the foreign 300s from a design perspective. This book contains not only the 300 story, But the $2.99, and why is that important, John?
Because that's where the cameo or the argued first or whatever you want to say is. It's both.
So people like to argue the difference between a cameo and a full appearance. Well, with this one, it is truly the Italian 300. You can't make that argument because it's got the $2.99 and the 300. Okay. Now, this copy is not too hard to source a mid-grade copy, but higher grade copies are getting increasingly expensive and hard to find on the Italian back issue market. They just are, the Italians are realizing that this book is selling, in the Italian comic collecting world, they're more run specific than key specific. So, for a lot of them, and I know this because I've spoken to many Italian collectors, this issue's kind of explosion has, turned a lot of heads. And it's because Italian eBay is very accessible to Americans.
Oh, I've bought many from there. We've talked about it, though. The issues with this one in high grade, the cardstock cover, you can't press it. It's going to take damage pretty easily as far as a bend.
And it scuffs, John.
Very scuffable. Yep. And Italians are not known for shipping well. So if you find one that does, keep buying them from him.
And
I've had several show up in just envelopes.
Yeah, and so they not only do they ship not too hot, but remember that the bag and board culture wasn't prevalent in Italy in the 80s. No. A lot of these 300s just got stacked. So scuffing is something you see a lot with these. Now, I'd like to talk a little bit about the design. Now, this is just my opinion on this, but the thinking is that the all black color, I feel like, is representative of the symbiote itself. It covers you. It's got this, it's all black. It's got this secret hidden kind of control over you. The venom in red just kind of highlights the danger. I mean, I think it's an almost perfect symbolism of what the symbiote actually is. And in my opinion, it's the most symbolically representative background of Venom instead of the schizophrenic 300. No, this makes more sense.
It adds to that cover and just makes it more. And you got the blue lettering of the title, which it could have went with red, but the blue just also gives a little more of a little pizzazz.
Pizzazz pop. The blue kind of matches the blue in the McFarlane circle, and the blue on the blue highlights on the foot and the Spider-Man itself.
Yeah.
This is a beautiful book, and
I mean, I could talk about it all day.
Yeah. I mean, we can't spend too much time on it, but let's just say that I believe that the Italian publisher, Star Comics, Edizione Star Comics. Now, when did we say this came out? In March of '92. So a little bit longer, further away than the American. But I think the Italian publisher did a better job handling Venom's appearance and handling McFarlane's artwork than the American pub did.
It's amazing. And if you are if you are just a casual Spider-Man fan, this is one you should grab because it's not that rare, and you just should have it.
Yeah, even if you're not building the set, if you don't own one of these, I think
you better get them before I buy them all.
John's gonna get them all. Yeah, yeah.
The next one is Mexico. This one a little more traditional.
Yes, very very much so. Mexican, the El Asombroso Hombre Rana, issue 445, published by Novedades in July of 1989. This issue is full color and contains the 300 story, the classic story, along with 2 pages of locally produced Spider-Man content. This issue also contains a super cool poster with a mask that kids could cut out. How many copies do not have this poster, John?
I don't even know. I actually didn't know about the mask and had to check my copy the other day, and I did have it. It's not my picture, but yeah. And this is a weird sized edition too. These guys they're tall. They're
bigger.
They're magazine tall, but not quite magazine wide. They're that tall, skinny format that we talked about a few times.
Yeah, it's larger
what
format.
Kids didn't cut this mask out.
I need to check mine. My books are all in storage, but I need to check mine now. We just, this is what I'm saying with the community. You need the community to pull these shows off because there's so much interesting and different information that not everyone has, and we've got to gather it together. Yeah, I don't know. I'm going to have to grab mine out of storage when our house sells and figure out if it's in there.
Dabbling in this community for years and not heard about the mask. So
just heard about it recently.
Yes.
It's a larger format than traditional American comics at the time, like we talked about. And, trust me when I tell you, this book is big. It's similar to the Spanish. And another deal with this book is this issue deals with a cutting defect on the bottom. Most copies of this edition have a miscut on the bottom that happened during the bindery process. So you end up with a little thin white line of varying thickness, depending on the book.
Mine has it on the right edge even.
Oh yeah, and some will even have it on the right edge. So in the printing world, it's called a bleed. When the artwork bleeds over and it gets cut, for some reason, Novedades, the Mexican publisher, didn't handle the bleed properly. I'm not exactly sure what happened, but when we're talking about this defect, I think I have only ever seen one copy without it.
Yeah.
Could a premium be paid for a non-miscut book? I believe so. I think if you can find one without that little white line and with good centering and cut, I think a premium needs to be paid for that because they're rare. And I've talked to Mexican collectors. They all tell me too. I've never seen one without the miscut. When I say, well, I've seen one, but only one.
So somebody got lucky. And this one's pretty traditional looking. I mean, the title's different. I don't love it, don't hate it. It just is.
Yeah, and another interesting thing about this, I believe that the Mcfarlane circle, go back to the American real quick. Do you see how the circle has a blue?
Yeah.
And the beauty of the Italian was that the blue and the circle match the title. Notice that our circle here is white, not blue.
Oh, yeah, I didn't. And it's a little more yellow in the background.
It's way more yellow in the background. So the Mexicans, definitely different. I like it. I love it. Like I was saying, novelty and variation fuels the set builder's drive, and this is a good example of that. As far as difficulty getting it, this is another one where you can get one. You just got to wait around a little while.
Not the easiest, but
it's not the easiest. But I think the Spanish might be a little easier.
I think the grade is a little tougher because Mexico's a little tough on condition.
And the Novedades had a real thin paper stock too.
Yes, very not quite newsprint, but it's very, very thin.
Yeah, it's very thin. And on this issue, it's going to take you a while to find a nice one if you're looking for it. But I like it. I like the Mexican one.
All right, so we're going to move on to the Netherlands.
The Netherlands, the Dutch. This is the De Spectaculaire Spider-Man 106, published by Junior Press in 1988. So this one was could not find a month for it, but I know it was 1988. So same year as the American. Full color interiors. It includes the entire classic 300 story. The Dutch Pub Junior Press is another one that just kept the 300 numbering, even though it didn't make sense in their run. My personal belief with this book, though, is that the Dutch books might have had the lowest print runs of all the Western European 300s because of population. You can use the Dutch-speaking population numbers to extrapolate on print runs. Of course, it's speculation, but they had to have been lower than in other parts of Europe because there were simply less Dutch speakers than Italians, Spanish. There's less of them. So I think this one might actually had the lowest print run of all the Western European nations. So you can find this one. I say it all the time. Junior Press books are hot and cold. A bunch will come to market, then there won't be any. Then a bunch will come, then there won't be any. I think this is an easier one of the set if you're building it to snag. Just stock Katawiki or Dutch eBay, and hopefully one will pop up. Cool book though, but
the cover loses a lot. Just the title blends in there.
The title blends in. I don't know why they decided to do that.
Yeah, it's I don't know, not the best design.
No, this is definitely one of the weaker designs, I think, of the group. Junior Press messed up a little bit on this one, I think, especially with the title.
Yeah, it
gets lost.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, we're going to jump to one that's a little more interesting.
Oh yeah, the Greek 300. Okay, this is the Greek Enatep Man, which I've been told by my Greek friends, if you were to pronounce that properly, it's simply Spider-Man. Yeah. But if we're looking at it, we see it as Enatep. Enatep Man.
It's the Greek alphabet on there, man. I had to took time to actually even type the damn thing.
Well, saying wouldn't exist, you're speaking Greek to me, right?
Yeah.
If Greek wasn't hard. Okay, Enatip Man 483, published by Cabanas Hellas in August 1990. The interiors are black and white with magenta spot color. This issue is digest sized and contains Spectacular Spider-Man 112, Daredevil 217, and 11 pages of 216. Now, the Cabanas Hellas Greek Marvels are notorious for not including the guts. No 300 story in there. Does that mean you shouldn't acquire one for the set? Hell no, it doesn't. This issue is cool with a solid red background, similar to the French, but some real killer trade dress with that title. That title is striking, John, with the yellow.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, we've talked several times about the Greek and just the language and it's just artistic looking.
Yeah, I love them. Love them.
The striking
the small
yellow
size.
on it.
The small size is cool. I love it that it's digest.
They moved the letterbox down to the bottom.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, that's kind of an interesting. So it kind of cleans up the top and makes some space for that really cool title. Print runs on Greek books could be all over the map. Spidey was Cabanas Hellas' longest running title. This was a popular title in Greece. Do you have any idea of how many issues Cabanas Hellas printed of Spider-Man?
Well, more than 483.
589 issues.
It's a pretty long run.
589 issues. That's a lot. So clearly, Spidey was popular in Greece. This is one that's going to give you a little bit of fits. This is a harder one to come by. I'm not going to say that it's too hard, but you're going to wait a while to find one. But they come to market. Yeah, it's hard. There's, again, the Greek guys tell me all the time that the Greek packaging market is very different from one that we would recognize here in America. It's like comic clubs and used bookstores. It's not as, I don't know. It's hard to explain, but just know that the Greek books can be hard to get them to come to market. I think that more Greek collectors know that Americans will pay stupid money for this book, so we're seeing it kind of pop out. Money is popping out more of them. But if you see one, this is one that I would suggest not caring necessarily about grade, just picking one up. You can always upgrade later because it could be a little while.
All right. Here is one more of the fairly easier ones.
Yep, this is definitely fairly easier ones. This is the French Un Récit Complete Marvel 25 Spider-Man - Venom, published by CMYK in February of 1990. This edition is full color and contains the classic 300, but it also has the Spider-Man 316 and 317. This edition is perfect bound, so it's more of a TPB. And the French publisher CMYK did something similar to the Italians and the Greeks. They removed the 300 lettering because it didn't make sense and used a solid to highlight the classic artwork. Red instead of black, like the Italians. But I think it's still neat, and I like the simplicity and the minimalistic kind of highlights of the classic McFarlane circle. I like the design of this. I kind of like the yellow banner, and this edition will be pretty simple to find. You just got to stalk French eBay for a while, and you'll find one.
It's funny because originally this was my least favorite of them, but as you've talked about it, I understand why people like it.
Yeah, I like this one. The simplicity of it, and yeah, the Venom title isn't nearly as cool as the way the Italians did it. But I like when the classic artwork is allowed to kind of stand on its own. And, you don't get much more classic than Todd's work here. And so in that way, but I'm biased, John. I've always felt the 300 was schizophrenic and kind of took away. I don't know why. I don't know who decided on the whole, because a couple other Marvel issues did that too. Wasn't there a New Mutants one that had like 100? It was just schizophrenic. I don't know if I like that design.
I have a Spider-Man 50. There's a few more.
Yeah, there's a few more that did it, and I don't know. Yeah. I call it into question. But this is a fun one, and if you're trying to build a set, go get you this one first, just to get some of that set building blood flowing, and pick up the French. The French are notorious for shipping, making you pay a lot on shipping, though. I am going to tell you that. So, even though you might find this book for like €5 on French eBay, you might pay 15 or 20 euros to get it here. So, you will run into some of that.
All right. So now we are going to go to the monster of this set, the one that causes nightmares.
Nightmares. Oh my
Philippines.
God. Oh my God. This 300 will give 300 set builders nightmares. They're going to wake up in cold sweats. This is the Filipino, the Amazing Spider-Man #1, published by Atlas on, I don't know, and we'll get to that in a second. Notice the unknown date? I don't know. We'll get to that in a minute. The interiors are full color. It contains the full Classic 300 story. And, of all the foreign editions of the 300, I think this is the one that is most similar to the American original. And it's ironic because this book is the monster of the set. Easily the most difficult to source, and easily the one, like you said, that's going to make you waking up from a nightmare in cold sweats. Now, I'm not saying it's impossible to get. I'm not even saying it's necessarily rare. Just know that this book is very, very difficult. Since I started in the foreign game, I've talked to a few people within the community. I've talked to a few other people within the community, and we think we know of possibly about 20, maybe a little more. So think about that for a second. Let that sink in. Significantly, only one copy of this edition, of this Filipino edition, has been found in the wild in the U.S. that we know of. Almost all of the other copies have been sourced from the Philippines. So that's interesting too. We talked about this a little bit, John. We think maybe it's because this book looks so similar that maybe it doesn't demand that, this book might be hiding out in American collections here in America.
Yeah, if you don't know, you don't know.
They might not know. I mean, it could be in backstock. It could be in whatever. And one of when people ask me all the time, I'm no expert, but people ask me all the time, why is the Filipino so hard to find? And I think it's, a perfect storm of a couple different issues. It's a perfect storm of climate, culture, and I believe smaller print runs as well. And the two biggies are going to be culture and climate. The Philippines is a really rough climate on paper. The best Filipino editions that we see are ones that we find in America that escape the climate. Okay. And then the other part of it is culture. I've talked to many Filipino collectors. And the thing about it was American comics were exploding just like in the US, there in the Philippines at the time. And so you had some publishers go and try to republish American material, whether it was like the MKPI Tagalogs, whether it was like Atlas here, who was doing this very popular Spider-Man title. And the thing about this Atlas publisher is it didn't survive very long. I think that this run for them only made it like 4 issues, John, and then it was gone. So it clearly wasn't selling, or there would have been more of them on there. And I've talked to Filipino collectors about the culture. They preferred the American edition. This copy, they might keep it in their collections as a filler until, or as, like a placeholder until they can find the American original. It's just a sad part of the Philippines that they didn't, in general, not all collectors, of course, I'm speaking in general terms here, but they didn't appreciate their local indigenous books nearly as much as their American books. And you see that all the time. You see it with lots of the different Filipino editions. The only indigenous editions that maybe they would put up there with American editions would be comics with a K, the Tagalog comics. But they're reprinted American books into the Filipino editions. The Filipino collectors are famous for hating these, for throwing them away, for using them to wrap silverware in, for just not giving them the respect. So that simple fact makes this book extremely hard to source. And when I say that we only know of a little more than 20, what does that mean? Look at how many 9.8s exist. How many did you say existed, John?
1,300 9/8. It's closer to the number of 9/9s.
We're talking, there's 10 9/9s, and we know of a little over 20 Filipino 300s in any grade at all.
And we've talked that this is one of, if not the most popular set that people have been building for the last decade or more.
Yeah, so it's not that people aren't looking for this book. they're just not finding them. They're just not coming out. Does that mean that it's super rare? I don't know. I wouldn't say that. I'm not on the ground in the Philippines.
It's the
but
most difficult to source.
it is the most difficult to source, and you're going to have nightmares. You're going to be like a little baby in your bed, and you're going to be dreaming, and you're going to see this book, and you're going to be reaching out to grab it, and it's not going to show up. And that's why we're seeing numbers of this book. One recently sold, one of the nicest ones that I've seen. I think it sold close to like $600 or $700 at one point within the last, I think it was a year, maybe.
It was about 6 months ago, and I was really trying hard to get it, and I
Yep.
lost.
And so and so is there going to be a foreign edition that breaks the grand and gets into the possibly even grand, like in
yes,
double? This is going to be the issue that does it. One day, some 300 set builder is not going to be able to find this, and he might pay $5,000 for it, for a copy that's mid-grade. I don't know. This is going to be a tough book. If you see this book anywhere, if you have this book, you're watching this show and you have it here in your American collection and you don't know what it is, you have just won the lottery, my friend.
Yeah, there's a lot of people looking for it, a lot of people building the set, a lot of people need this book.
Yep. So they have them all except this book. And it's so similar to the American edition. We lose our barcode. You get the best Atlas. What does it say? It's like a little medal. It's like Atlas Comics, the best in comics. Yeah. The top, all that they did to the top was they stripped out the American info and put in their #1 Philippines and their Filipino currency. And then another interesting thing about this book, we talk about. Go ahead.
I'm going to throw it up there for you.
Yeah, throw it up there. So we talk about a lot of these foreign editions being relatively unknown and why it takes so much energy and work to find this information out. This book, we still do not know definitively when it was published. The indicia is an absolute reprint from the American book. It says May 1988. The only difference is if you look down there on the bottom, you see published by M Inc. for Atlas Publications. That's all they put on there. There's no place we could find where we have a copyright date or some way of figuring out when this book got produced. I talked to some of the Filipino collectors. They swear it was 91. They swear it was either late 1990, early 1991. Global Comico, he's got a copy that he says was 93. I'm not sure where Global Comico got that info. But 93 or 91 sounds a lot more accurate than May of 88. So I can't give you a date on this book. I don't know. No one knows. There is no database for Filipino books where you can find this information. And this publisher's long gone the way of the dodo, so we might not ever know, John.
It's insane that something like that is just not tracked.
Think about that. And we find this in the foreign world, with the more obscure and I hate to use the word rarer books, but it's the truth. A lot of the European stuff, there's European databases where you can find the information. A lot of the Spanish, and South American stuff, there's databases that track that information. But Filipinos are like a big black hole. There's just not a lot of info out there. And population numbers on these books, like I've said before, me and Tim Bildhauser, the CBCS expert, though he hates being called that, he's going to get mad at me when he hears me say that, but we actually believe that there were runs of certain Filipino titles where all known copies of maybe a specific number are just gone to the winds, no longer in existence. Where else can you say that within the hobby, especially on a Copper Age book? This is a badass big boy book. This is a ghost, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I've watched, and there was a little spurt of a few came to market, and they got gobbled up, and then they've dried out again.
Yep, gobbled up like zombies to brains, man. This is going to be your toughest guy. You're sitting out there thinking about building the 300 set. If you run across this in any condition, sometimes some of the ones that have been pulled from binds. So the Filipinos had a habit of binding books as well. Even if you find one that's pulled from a bind, buy it.
Take it.
Take it.
So I wanted to jump back to the set because
Yep.
This set, as we said, was small but mighty. We're going to do it in 2 episodes. So part 1 you have seen. We're going to jump back for another episode for part 2, but just take in the elegance of this set.
And in the next episode, we're also going to talk about some editions that don't use cover. So those will be what I like to call oddities. That'll be a fun one. But yeah, this is a beautiful set, man. Beautiful set. And I guarantee you walk into any comic book store with – I have. In fact, I like to do it. Walk into any comic book store and walk up to the store owner and say, I bet you I got something you never seen before, dude. And they go, I've been in this game forever, bro. You bust out this 300 set, you're gonna have jaws hitting the floor, man.
Thank you all for joining us on this part 1 of this amazing set. We will be back with you next week for part 2. Just thank you to, again, CBSI Comic Book Invest for helping us with everything and all their support. Check them out for any of your comic book research and needs. Check out our friends at Parallel Irvin out of Turkey. They are best source of Turkish comics, some great variants and small ratio print things going on over there. So some beautiful covers we've highlighted before, and I'll have some more for you soon.
Awesome books.
And catch Matt on Foreign Comics Calling podcast that records sort of weekly. They're a little bit on hiatus. And again, check out all the content on Tales from the FlipSide channel. Like and subscribe if you haven't. We'll be doing Tales from FlipSide on Monday. We've got Vintage Voyage on Sundays with some Golden Age talk. So if you're into foreign comics, you might dabble in the Golden Age. I seem to see a lot of crossover in those 2 things. So,
and let me call out your hat, John. It's amazing.
I busted out some vintage '90s Marvel hat.
Your hat game is destroying mine, man.
Yes. Well, I can't cut my hair, so I had to pull out a
I can't cut mine
hat.
either. Yeah. This is my COVID haircut. I'm gonna end up with like a Kid and Play. I think I'm gonna do a Kid and Play flat top.
That may be the way to go. All right. Thank you, everyone. And we'll see you again next week.
Thanks for watching.
2.